This episode is brought to you by HK Real Estate, helping make dreams come true for families across the Denver metro area. Whether you are buying or selling, Heather Kirchhoff is a realtor you can count on to deliver a top-notch experience. Heather and her husband Ryan are runners and active members of our local outdoors community, so you know she'll get your need to be near a trailhead in your next home. Check her out at heatherkirchhoff.com. That's Kirchhoff with 2 H's and 2 F's.
Backcountry Colorado, hiking, backpacking.
I did a lot of marathons. I was convinced to do some ultras.
Climbing, and I do filming and photography.
If I get a phone call from Wade or Eric or any one of these incredible people that I like to surround myself with, I want to always be able to say yes. And that might mean skiing an incredible mountain objective. It might mean running 100 miles or more. It might mean climbing something challenging. It might mean an open water swim that I don't even own swim goggles for. But I still want to be able to say, yeah, I can do this.
Welcome, everybody, to Dispatch Radio. I am your host, Russ Rizzo. On today's show, we bring you the latest in our Front Range Live series, a podcast we recorded live at the American Mountaineering Center in Golden, Colorado, with 3 Golden Incredibles. Incredible athletes tackling audacious challenges in the mountains. Jason Antin, Wade Morris, and Erik Sanders are Golden locals who train and adventure together. Whether flying across the world on a mission to quote-unquote beat Monday, climbing some of the world's tallest mountains, or tackling day-long sufferfests they ironically call picnics. Fellow co-host and podcast founder Kelly McConnell led the discussion with a crowd of friends and fans. A special thanks to Colorado Mountain Club for hosting the event. If this episode gets you jonesing to want to start rock climbing, or simply go find new friends to hike with around the Denver metro area or elsewhere in Colorado, CMC is a great place to check out. Look them up at cmc.org. And while you're there, consider chipping in a donation. And a big thanks to Arc'teryx Denver for coming out and doing an awesome raffle with an Arc'teryx jacket that hashtag FOTS friend of the show, Jen Forker, took home. Now on to the show.
Eric, how do you know these guys?
I guess I'll start off with Jason. So it started off, I think we briefly met at a Golden Mountain Runners event just in town. And it was like a year and a half later, Jason sent out a message that said, hey, is anybody up for a picnic? And I think he sent the message out to, 10 or 15 people. And, the message was really vague. And I immediately replied, yes. Let me know when. If for those of you that don't know the picnic, it's a kind of a mountain objective in the Jackson Hole area, where you start in Jackson Hole, bike to Jenny Lake, swim across Jenny Lake, and then run up and down the Grand Teton, and then go back to Jackson Hole. And that was our first adventure together. I didn't know Jason very well, but we had a gret time, and ever since then it's been a lot of fun. And I met Wade basically through Jason, and through these adventures and stuff like that. So
How did the picnic go? Was it just the two of you?
it was just Jason,
Jason
and I.
Was that last summer?
The first time we did the picnic was 2016, I think. And to kind of elaborate on Eric's story, it pretty much went down how he explained it. I wanted to go do it. I really wanted to go out and experience this thing. Jenny, my wife, was really excited to come out and explore the Tetons and crew me because she was pregnant with Avery. And Eric nailed everything except for I did send that email out to all those fine folks. But then when everyone saw that it was a minimum of 3 to 4 miles of open water swimming in an alpine lake, they declined, and Eric clearly accepted.
In the dark.
In the dark, yeah. Pitch black, jumping into Jenny Lake, swimming nearly 2 miles across it. He was the only one I could convince to join me.
How could you see into where you were going? Was there a boat to help you?
So thankfully Jenny was there,
Okay,
and we made a last-ditch effort to run to the gear shop and buy a strobe light. And thankfully, Jenny drove around to the far end of the lake and placed this strobe on a dock in a place that we could see it.
Sweet. That sounds fun.
Yeah, it was literally pitch black. And the other funny thing about that was Jason forgot his goggles. And so luckily I had brought 2 pairs, but one of them was tinted. And so, we're swimming in the middle of the night, and I don't know if I took the tinted goggles. I think I took the tinted goggles, and I was literally like swimming through space. I was just seeing this strobe light flash on the other side, and I was like, where in the hell am I?
So this is really inspiring for people who won't do triathlon because they're afraid of swimming. So wait, you guys all do different sports, a lot of different sports. Which one is your favorite? I'm going to guess climbing.
Yeah.
Rock climbing specifically?
Yeah, I'd say I'm mostly a climber.
And what kind of climber? Do you do like mostly sport or trad climbing?
I like to do it all.
Yeah.
The bigger the wall, the better, generally.
And what is it about it that makes it your favorite sport?
I like getting high off the ground. It's fun, and it's like a fun individual team sport where you're sharing in this objective together. But then there's the individual aspects of climbing the pitch. You've got your belayer down below you, but it's you climbing on the rock, and you can get into your own kind of headspace and flow state. But ultimately, it's the two of you as a team that make it up together. So it's a fun culmination of like team sport and individual.
I was asking you earlier about why you choose these guys to do adventures with, and don't you think it comes into play a lot, just the safety factor of being with the people you trust and doing the endurance? You trust them with the endurance of what you want to do?
Oh, definitely. Like for most of my big adventures, there's a small list of people that I'll really ask to go do it with, and the safety almost becomes it's not really in the forefront of my mind once I've asked that small subset of people, just because I know that I can rely on them. So I really don't even kind of really think about the safety part of it. It really comes down to the just having fun with the guys, because I don't know, like you do these cool adventures, but there's so many like sub stories that happen, or just like there's a lot of funny things that happen.
So these
as a
guys are more
process.
fun than most guys that you hang out with.
That I've found, yeah.
Yeah. So Erik, you are a big adventure racer, correct? And so is that your big thing, adventure racing still?
Adventure racing is my main sport, and
Yeah.
that's how I got into a lot of bigger endurance, like ultra endurance activities, and that's really what kind of formed my take on the outdoors and how I like to approach the outdoors.
And what does that involve, adventure racing?
Adventure racing is a multi-sport objective, and a lot of the adventure races I've done have been multi-day, and sleep deprivation is just part of it. So you're going for multiple days, and sleep is all on the clock. So how much sleep your team wants to take is up to how you're feeling and how well you want to do in the race and where the teams are around you. And
what
it's a lot of
sports are
factors.
you doing?
Mountain biking, kayaking, running, trekking. You can be doing mountaineering, glacier travel type stuff.
So you're really diverse in a lot of sports. Which one is your favorite? Do you have one?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why I like doing adventure racing and like doing all these things, is because I don't really have a favorite sport. I just like moving in the outdoors and being able to experience, different, like climbing brings me to different places than running does, and mountain biking brings me to different places. So I think I just enjoy the different places that all these activities can bring me.
In what way? Like in a fear factor, or pushing yourself hard
I think
in
it's
your
in
body?
Yeah, it's just in the actual physical landscape. Climbing, you can be up high on this wall, and maybe you had to run to get back there, and you had to have the endurance as a runner to get back there to even think about climbing the wall. And I think that's really cool, just to be able to combine all those things, and to be strong enough to be able to link those things together. You wouldn't be able to do it maybe without having an endurance background in running, or in not necessarily mountain biking, but mountain biking also can leads you to places in a different, method where it's just quicker to get back there mountain biking. Why would I run on a road,
Yeah.
for 20 miles when I could just mountain bike back there instead? So I think it's just cool to link together lots of different objectives. I think Jason and this guy Eric Lee and I a few years ago did something in the Sangre de Cristo range where the road was closed to the trailhead. There was an avalanche that happened, or not an avalanche, it was a landslide. And the landslide had covered over the road so nobody could get back there. And we decided to mountain bike back and we carried our bikes over the landslide area and then still did this like epic link up. We dropped our bikes at the trailhead, ran up and did a low 5th class scramble up Blanca Peak. Was it Blanca? And then came back down, mountain bike down to the road, back to our car. And I mean, that was still one of the most fun days I've had out in the mountains.
Yeah, that sounds fun. It must be awesome to have the ability to do all those things so well. It's awesome. Yeah. So Jason, how about you? What's your sport of choice?
Well, ever since I wrapped up my career as a football player, I moved on to the outdoors, and I've certainly always identified as a climber. And so climbing was and will be my passion. But I got into endurance sports as a way to kind of train for longer climbs. And so, when I signed up for my first ultra marathon, it was mostly geared towards 2 goals. One is get better at alpine climbing and training my mind to be able to do that. But I also wanted to pick a goal that I thought that if I didn't train, I would certainly fail. And so that's what kind of introduced me to the endurance world and blending climbing and running and all things moving in the mountains together.
So it sounds like, Eric, you're always in shape for every sport. Is that correct?
I try to be.
Yeah.
I don't succeed in that all the time, but I'd like to be.
I feel like that's what you do. Is that true, Jason?
I think there's a lot of different ways to define what you're trying to explain. And the way I best see it in my own eyes is if I get a phone call from Wade or Eric or any one of these incredible people that I like to surround myself with, I want to always be able to say yes. And that might mean skiing an incredible mountain objective. It might mean running 100 miles or more. It might mean climbing something challenging. It might mean an open water swim that I don't even own swim goggles for. But I still want to be able to say, yeah, I can do this. And so that's kind of how I see always staying prepared to do lots of things. It's just always keeping myself in a position to say yes.
And what does that week look like? Just quickly.
It varies.
Okay.
It varies greatly. For me personally, it changes season to season. So some days I might be in the Alpine Training Center lifting weights a lot. Some days I might be on the trails most of the time. I might be at earth treks multiple days or backcountry skiing. It really varies week to week and whatever goal, either short-term or long-term, I have in the calendar.
Okay, and they all build off each other, all the different sports. So you and Eric, just the two of you did the Infinity Loop?
Correct. So three of us started it. Well, Wade was on that initial list.
What happened, Wade?
I had to run. I had to train to run.
Oh, okay. What does that mean? I don't get it. You had to train to run.
So all these guys have done multiple hundreds, and
Yeah.
I've run maybe like 30 miles is my
okay, I
longest
see.
run.
You weren't trained
And I
appropriately.
didn't want my first 100 to be in the Infinity Loop.
Okay, so these guys got the fastest known time, unsupported, which means no one was out there for the Infinity Loop, right? No one was out there. You guys supported yourselves, and can you tell the audience what the Infinity Loop is exactly?
Sure. So a gentleman, an incredible alpinist named Chad Colo, dreamt up this human-powered adventure around the well-known Mount Rainier. And it starts at the Paradise Trailhead, goes up and over Mount Rainier once, runs approximately 30 plus miles around back to that trailhead on the Wonderland Trail. So world-famous, incredibly classic trail run. And then you get back to Paradise and you put on your party pants and you go back up and over Rainier another time. back to the White River Trailhead, and then you finish the Mount Rainier Infinity Loop by running another 67 plus miles on the Wonderland Trail back. So you end up summiting Rainier twice and running the entirety of the Wonderland Trail. Ends up being about 135 miles and 47 to 50,000 feet of vertical gain.
And how long did that take you?
The first person to do it ever was about 99 hours, and then another group took it on and shaved off 97 hours, and then a very well-known alpinist named Scott Bennett went out there and took a huge chunk out of this thing, brought it down to 66 hours solo, and then Erik and I, with our partner Sam Ritchie, who did not complete the whole thing, Erik and I were able to complete the loop in 59 hours.
How did it feel?
It felt great. No, it really did. It's kind of hard to explain, but I think the three of, Erik and I, when we were together, and then when we were the three of us together as a trio, we were just really moving in sync well. And for those of you that have been out in the mountains with good friends, I mean, it certainly adds to the positive mindset, which seems to continue to propel you forward.
So what made you guys decide to do this? Whose idea was this?
So in January, I think Wade and there was a number of people on a email list that Jason had sent out. So this was originally Jason's idea.
Everyone's wondering right now how they get on your email list.
Yeah, it's yeah. I won't go into that, but so Jason had sent out an email to a few people, and it's like, hey, I've got this objective. I got my sights on it. I think the way he actually said it was, I'm looking for a way to see inside my skull again, something like that. And he came up with he heard about that mountaineer. What was his name? Chad Kellogg. Yeah. He'd known about Chad Kellogg's idea about the Rainier Infinity Loop, and I believe it was 4 people at that time who had completed it. So yeah, it was Jason's original idea, and
why did you want to do, or what drives you to do the fastest known time for that?
I don't even necessarily, we were going for the fastest known time, but that time did change very drastically when Scott Bennett did it. So we were really questioning whether we could even get the FKT by the time we were already committed to do it. But generally we were just excited to go out and do the whole thing in general. I mean, just to do the whole loop. Like, it didn't necessarily matter if we did the FKT or not.
You guys are just badasses.
I mean, I don't know if I would say that, but
that's why you're here.
I mean, we just wanted to have a good time out in the mountains and push ourselves. And, we've all, Jason and I and Sam, who had done Rainier Infinity Loop, had kind of done all these things endurance-wise in the mountains and built up to this point where we thought that, Rainier Infinity Loop was maybe the next step, or maybe the thing that could break us, and we wanted to test that, and I think endurance athletes as a whole in general are always looking to test themselves to the next thing. And Jason and I and Sam, we like climbing mountains, and we like running in beautiful places, and what better place to do that than Rainier National Park?
Was it amazing?
It was unreal. I still can't describe how amazing that whole thing was. Were we tired and were we suffering? Yes. But was it still one of the best things I've ever done? In a mountain sense, I think I can say that right now, at least in my life.
So Wade mentioned that he hadn't run 100 miles and wasn't really trained for the running. So you guys did quite a bit of running, or was it just the distance in general? Or I guess my question is, what kind of training really would someone have to have done to be like, okay, I can go do this?
You definitely need a heavy skill set in mountaineering and glacier travel, and Rainier is a serious mountain. We didn't want to downplay that. Rainier has killed many people, and the weather conditions can be really serious. So mountaineering is you need to have some serious mountaineering skill set, and ability on crampons and rope systems and glacier travel things. And then along with that, you're pushing yourself to these extreme limits. And the second time up Mount Rainier, I was pretty much destroyed. Like, my body was dead, and we were still going up the mountain. And we didn't go up that much slower than the first time, but my body was just dead. But at the same time, you can kind of keep a certain level of composure, and we hadn't slept yet either. We were 30 some hours in and going up Rainier for a second time, and it's serious.
What keeps you going? What do you say to yourself? You guys talk about this when you're feeling this way? Russ wanted me to ask how you communicate about how you're feeling, and if you tell each other. At what point are you like, I feel like I'm screwed?
Well, first off, to address that directly, we came up with this little thing called the penalty box. So if any of you have done long distance stuff, there's always peaks and valleys. You very rarely have just a perfectly executed endurance effort, right? There's so many things that go into it. There's nutrition, there's how you've trained, there's how your body's doing the terrain. And so more often than not, only one of us out of the three were really having a hard time. And so we rectified that by, we'd look around, and if someone's starting to drag, they get put in the penalty box, which is the sandwich between the two of us, and they basically get coaxed into eating and hydrating and getting their butt in gear, and it worked every single time. And so, kind of just using that accountability and nipping things in the bud that are so important in endurance, like nutrition, for example, or pacing. And that worked really well for motivation. But to go back to your question about how do you prepare for the Infinity Loop, I sent that email out to certain folks that had a criteria of endurance experience. So I knew everyone on the list had either a great depth of that experience, or they would take it seriously and train to achieve that. Mountaineering skills, with the exception of Sam, who eventually made the right choice to not do Rainier a second time in 24 hours because he was not totally comfortable with the consequences of falling in that terrain, which was a good choice. And then the third and most important one was, do I want to spend 100 hours with these people? And I wouldn't send that email out to anyone who I didn't want to be, finding my way through the Wonderland Trail at dark in a delirium with anyone else. So I wouldn't send that email to anyone but these folks.
Awesome. Really awesome job, you guys. Congratulations on doing that. So what's next for you guys, Wade, with these guys? Do you have something planned?
I've got a couple things planned. I don't know if we want to talk about a couple of them.
Oh, they're secrets?
Yeah.
Aw.
I always get a yearly email from Jason of okay, what's next? Type of thing.
You don't have to share if you don't. But there's stuff planned.
Yeah, we've got some fun things planned. Me and Jason always go to Yosemite every year to do a big weekend of climbing. I wasn't able to make it this last year, but we've been going to Yosemite on Halloween for the last 3 or 4 years. So we've done some big things like that, like climbing El Cap in a day. This last time we went, we did Half Dome. We've been rained out a couple times. We still making up walls. You can aid climb in the rain. I'd really like to do the Moranic, which I know both these guys haven't done. So I was going to ask them if they wanted to go do that. And that's kind of a play on the picnic up in Jackson, where you bike, and I don't know what lake you swim across, but then you climb Mount Moran, come back down, swim across the lake, and bike back to Jackson. So that's on my list this year.
That sounds awesome. Cool. So I hear that, Jason, you're going to be doing the Grand Traverse with your sister, Mary, who I've done a lot of run training with, and she has the best energy and drives people forward, but she's probably pretty stoked to be doing something she's never done with you. And so
guys, we're going to reshuffle a little bit. We're going to bring Travis Macy up. We're going to talk a little bit about Grand Traverse, and then we're going to take people's questions. All right, cool. So Travis Macy, longtime endurance athlete and coach, author of The Ultra Mindset. Thank you for coming out. For those interested in Travis's story, we do have a profile in motion on the podcast feed, so you can hear all about Travis's story. Hope your dad is doing all right, for those familiar with that story. Thanks for joining the panel, Travis. We're going to talk a little Grand Traverse, and then I'll have a little audience mic here for questions that I know Jen Forker is going to lead us off with. So
I got to chime in real quick before the Grand Traverse stuff. So when Erik did this picnic thing with Jason here a couple years ago, I was coaching Erik at the time for adventure racing, getting ready for some of these upcoming things. And as I recall, Erik, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but my memory on this given Tuesday or whatever it was is I said, in the training plan, go out and, mountain bike for 2 hours. And then all of a sudden I look on Strava and it's like, man, where is he? Like, where did he go biking? And then he's swimming, and oh man, he had a lot of vertical gain on this run. And I think maybe he called me the next day or something, and he was still alive. So
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Jason, will you define what the Grand Traverse is?
I'd be happy to. In a nutshell, it's a 40-mile ski from Crested Butte to Aspen. Now it's expanded into not only a ski but a bike and a run series. So it's a 3-part endurance event. But the kind of the signature experience is a through-the-night ski mountaineering ultra marathon that takes you from Crested Butte to Aspen.
And Erik and Travis did this last year, correct?
Yep, in 2018.
Okay. And Travis, since we have you here for some free coaching, what would you tell a beginner like Mary who has never done this sport until this year? Is that correct, Jason?
That's correct.
So this is new to her, and it's going to be obviously her first time doing the race. What would you tell someone like her for mindset going out there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the Grand Traverse is a very unique event, and to prepare for it, you've got the fitness side of things, which of course is very important, and in this case, unique to ski mountaineering races because the Grand Traverse has so much relatively flat terrain. So for most teams, there's going to be a lot of skating, really a Nordic skiing motion. So that's something that people need to practice and do a bit with. And then also, again, just that aerobic fitness and strength to be out there and go the distance in the middle of the night. But then what's unique about this particular event, especially within ski mountaineering, is it's more similar to the stuff that these guys have been talking about, like a real wintertime journey, than it is the shorter ski-mo races that are 2 or 3 hours. So the fact that you start at midnight, and if it's a warm day, it's going to be in the 20s, and if it's a cold day, it's going to be well below zero. And managing those conditions all night long, most people are going to be out there well into the next day. That's a big piece of it. So you got to think a lot about the gear. There's an extensive mandatory gear list, which is great for an event like this. So you got to have all that together. You also need to have that organized in a way that fits in a little backpack that you can carry. Because, if you get the typical heavyweight stuff with this gear, you could easily be carrying 50 pounds, and it's not going to fit in your backpack. So you want to spend time doing that. You want to train with your gear. You want to figure out how can you go all night long without your water freezing. What are you going to eat? How are you going to keep these things warm? What's your lighting system? How many pairs of climbing skins are you going to bring in? How are you going to manage those so that they're not freezing up? So there's really a lot of variables, and it's not impossible. I mean, there's a lot of athletes I know who are not by any means professional athletes, but they set a goal. They spend a lot of time throughout the winter working on all of those aspects, and they get it done. And then the mindset's big too. I mean, that's a great question, because I know I take my dog out every night, for a walk before bed, and I'm freezing. And, it's probably 30 degrees out, and I think to myself, how in the world can I go out and ski all night long? And these are the kind of stories and doubts that everyone deals with. And that's okay. That's part of the deal. That's that's all right, and that's something to train for. That's when you can do some mental training. You can do challenging things for the purpose of getting stronger, and maybe that's going out and skiing at midnight, or maybe it's getting up early and going for a run in the cold. So you're just kind of building that well of resilience. But I think when you feel that nervousness, when you feel this sense of, kind of like they said with the infinity loop, I may or may not be able to do that. It's scary, but that's also a sign that you're alive. And that's the whole point of doing this stuff in the first place.
I like that you say that. It's a sign that you're alive. Sometimes it hurts, but at least you're feeling something, right? I also was just going to mention that Travis trained Erik to help him win the world championship for adventure racing. Is that right?
We got second.
Oh, you got second.
But
that's okay.
I don't want to take that.
That's still amazing.
At least, yeah.
Your team, right?
Yeah. The team, we got second at the Adventure Racing World Championships in Australia in 2016.
Yeah, that's awesome. Nice work.
And yeah, Travis helped me out a lot in training for that, and that was great. And I came into that race feeling really strong and ready, and yeah, we had an amazing race there, and finished second to currently they're still unbeaten in, I think, 5 years of these big races, big, long multi-sport races where a lot can happen, and they can, this team Seagate, they continually make really smart choices, and they're just absolute monsters. So
it was awesome to be a part of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Getting second was a big moment there.
So we're going to open this up to some audience questions, if anyone has questions.
All right, guys. So I'm in the audience with the audience mic with Jen Forker.
So y'all are rock climbers. How does someone who's maybe never done it get started? And do you have to be as thin as all of you? Or can you be a little bit heavier? And maybe a little bit older by 20 years?
I'll start this one off because I know Jason's not going to self-promote, but you could hire Jason Antin because he's a rock climbing guide. So I'd recommend, if you've never gotten into it and you know nothing about the technical aspects of climbing, get with your local rock climbing guide, and they will have all the gear. They will have all the knowledge to keep you safe. Usually you'll start on the ground, and they'll teach you all the different types of systems so you get comfortable, and then you move into top roping, and then you maybe move into a multi-pitch.
Great question, Jim, because sitting in front of you, one row ahead, is Logan with Colorado Mountain Club. Logan, you're helping host this great event. That's a great question for you. How do folks get involved with rock climbing, and what does Colorado Mountain Club do to get them out?
Yeah, it's funny. When Jennifer asked that question, I was like, oh, yeah, I hope he brings me into this one for Colorado Mountain Club. So Russ approached me and was looking for some space for this podcast to go down tonight. And Russ is a member, a supporter of the CMC, and the CMC is all about Golden. And, everyone here tonight's pretty plugged into the community here in Golden. But yeah, we're an old nonprofit, and we put on classes. We do conservation work. We educate the youth and get them started climbing. But as an adult, that's one of my favorite parts from a member perspective of the CMC is you can take classes with us, and it's kind of like a la carte. Like, say you already know how to climb pretty confident in the gym inside, like Wade was talking about, but you're a little nervous to climb outside. I run into this a lot. I get a little intimidated of the big walls sometimes. So you could sign up for, an advanced climbing class that's going to take you up into El Dorado Canyon, where these guys are talking about. So definitely check out cmc.org. Even if you already have the wealth of knowledge to climb these big walls, support the CMC just by being a member. Your yearly dues to be a member keeps the lights on for the CMC as a nonprofit. And if you don't live in the area, just donate to us. We're definitely fighting the good fight nowadays in this political climate as well, writing letters to our senators, just constantly fighting that battle. So, yeah, it's a really fun event. But I hope, Jennifer, you sign up, take some of our classes, and we'll get you out climbing on some walls soon.
Awesome. I should say, guys, I did get started climbing. I had a college roommate who climbed who got me in. But when I moved to Colorado, I took lessons and learned how to actually do it, and met my closest climbing friend through the Colorado Mountain Club. So thank you guys for all you guys do. If I wander over here, speaking of people with some know-how, we have 2 world champion, world's toughest mudders sitting here. So we've got to take the opportunity to say hi to Chris Mendoza and Rhea Coble. Thank you guys for being out. Speaking of Golden Incredibles, now Rhea, I know you're technically Boulder, but you do some training here too, right?
Yeah, I run a White Ranch Table Mountain sometimes, so.
This is true, right? We have 2 world champion, world's toughest mudders sitting right here.
Yep, it was about a month ago. Yeah, we both won, so it was awesome.
And not only that, you guys are kind of like BFFs.
Oh yeah, we do a lot together. We run together, hike together, just yeah.
And Jason actually introduced us. We always are looking for cool people to have on the show. And he's like, well, you got to meet this guy, Chris Mendoza. Do you guys have a question for our panelists?
I had a question about like unsupported FKTs. How much food extra do you bring? Because obviously you don't want to carry too much extra weight, but then if something goes like, oh shit, what's the margin? At what point would you call it quits, and at what point would you still try it? Like, would you have enough fuel to push through?
Really, that's a really good question. I think one of the hardest logistical conundrums we ran into was exactly that. So we had, you're speaking mostly to the Rainier Infinity Loop, I imagine, which is what we just talked about. We had 4 Ziploc bags, and we spent probably 2 hours debating on exactly what number of calories to put in each bag. And we certainly we came up with a number for each one of those legs. So one was the first leg up and over the mountain, and then the first run leg, the second leg up and over the mountain, and then the final run leg. But we eventually decided on like an emergency stash. And so I think we erred on the side of caution. So we carried more food than not because we knew we'd be out, 70 miles in the backcountry at times with no option other than to keep moving forward. And we were okay carrying a little extra weight during that time.
I guess the only thing I would add is, on the adventure racing aspect, we deal with that a lot. And sometimes we get it wrong. And the unfortunate thing is you just deal with it and you start rationing food, but you also realize that it's not the end of the world. And you push through anyways, and you find a way to make it work. So yeah, it can be done. That's always the tricky part. You figure out, I think my number is 200 calories an hour, but that's not a blanket number necessarily. Like in hot races, it can be different. In cold races, it can be different. In really long races, I can eat more. But, you take all those things into account. And, with experience, you start to figure it out a little bit better and you can hone it in. But, yeah, worst case scenario, you say, oh, I'm running low on food. I better start rationing this. And, you can do it, and it's not the end of the world, but it's not ideal. But that's also part of the fun of doing unsupported FKT efforts. That's why it makes it a little more interesting. Is you're trying to figure out what you need out there instead of, oh, these are my aid stations. What do I need to bring in between aid stations?
What Erik said about it not being ideal, I was talking with one of my clients today, and we were talking about the preparation for a certain race, and things were good but not absolutely perfect. And one of the things I try to share with people is if you wait for everything in life to be ideal, then you're probably not going to go out and do much. And anyone who's a parent knows that, but I think that's true of endurance athletes as well. If you want to get out the door and if you want to do something new, don't wait for it to be perfect. You don't have to have everything totally dialed in. I think you should just get out there and give it a shot.
And a little segue for our Upslope sponsors here as I open my next one up. Thank you to our Upslope sponsors. Passing the mic back to Chris.
Yeah, I actually have Jason to thank for moving here. He put Golden on my radar. I'd never even heard of it or thought about it. So yeah, so thank you. Question kind of about Rainier is when you guys are going together. I currently have a rule where I see one sunrise and one sunset. Yeah, not more than a day. How do you guys yeah, we're going to break that soon. Yeah. But how do you guys figure out when you're going to sleep or if you sleep, especially when it's 2 of you out at the same time?
I'll start because I have less experience than Erik does in adventure racing. That's certainly, a big piece of the puzzle is sleep strategy. I think for us, we kind of looked at people who had done it in the past, and Scott Bennett was the closest to us, and he had kind of an interesting sleep schedule where he did one summit of Rainier, ran back, and then slept. And then we're like, well, if we're going to put a good dent in this thing, we kind of need to go over Rainier again before the big chunk. So our goal, we kind of set aside our goal to attempt to sleep about, how many miles in was that? 30, 20?
30.
The ways in.
34.
So we wanted to leave it with about 70 miles to go. And we had tents set up at that side of the mountain ready to go. And I definitely had some trouble sleeping. I don't think either of us slept all that much, but just that time at rest really helped. But I think hours, I mean, I think I probably slept more than this, but I feel like I only slept for 15 minutes in that effort. We definitely, neither of us slept more than 90 minutes guaranteed. So in
90
59
minutes
hours.
In how many?
In 59 hours.
59 hours, yeah.
Yeah,
And we
that's
learned
at best.
at the Courtney DeWalter show, Heather Kirchhoff over, you guys might recognize Heather, sponsored our Courtney DeWalter show. We learned about the 1 minute nap that she was talking about. Got a question over here with Logan.
The 1 minute nap is on par with this question, but if you're only sleeping 15 minutes or 90 minutes tops, at what point do you just strategize? Do you say, hey, we're not sleeping at all, or do you really need that kind of silent relaxation time to regroup?
I'll say one more thing where I pass it off to the master over here of sleep deprivation. I think for us, so at that point it was just down to Eric and I. We had a 3 in our group during that, and we kind of made a little pact before we curled into our little fetal positions was, hey, if neither of us are sleeping, we're up and get moving right away. And it got to that point about, like I said, an hour and change after we laid down and kind of looked at each other and said, let's get rolling. Let's not muck around.
Yeah, sleep strategy is tricky. You definitely don't need to sleep within, the first 24 hours. Once you started getting to 36 hours, your body really starts to notice it and your mind really starts to notice it. And that's about where Jason and I took our first big rest. On the other side of Rainier, we were only 17 hours in. Were we beat up? Yeah, we were really beat up and our bodies were messed up and stuff. But 17 hours in, we could still keep going mentally. So we decided to go to the other side of the mountain. And that wasn't an ideal time to sleep because it was in the middle of the day. And that's part of the reason I think why Jason didn't sleep very well is just because it was, based on the circadian rhythm and things like that. It just wasn't a time to sleep. Even though we were 34 hours in sleep deprived, your body didn't really want to go to sleep. And you don't really experience those things unless you do it. You think, I need 8 hours of sleep a night. But until you actually have a driven goal, that was our goal. So it was easier for us to go sleep deprived. If you have a goal, it's easy to go sleep deprived. If you just live a normal life, it's not easy to be sleep deprived. I don't have sleep deprivation in my life. I don't train sleep deprivation. I only go sleep deprivation when I'm in a race or in an actual thing. I don't think it's good for you to do necessarily. I don't think it's healthy to do necessarily, but this is just what I like to do for some odd reason.
To add to what Eric's saying, I actually didn't feel that tired during the Rainier Infinity Loop, and I think I chalked it up to exactly what he's trying to explain. It's we had a goal and we were very driven, and every moment we were very focused. A few days or a little while after, I did another big endurance feat that was a little less serious, and I was exhausted. And then a month later, I did a long endurance race, and same thing. Sleep was very minimal, and I was completely exhausted. But neither of the two latter events had as much stacked up on the line, and I didn't feel as committed to the objective, and therefore I felt a lot more tired while I was out there.
General rule of thumb is in our adventure races is we skip the first night of sleep, and then it's 2 hours of sleep every night after that. But it's also by feel too. If we feel like we need a little more, we'll take a little more. If we feel like we can push it, then we do that.
So what's the furthest any of y'all have pushed it?
For me, I think it's somewhere around 48 hours, 50 hours without sleep. Once you get past that, you can do it past that. But in adventure racing, you start to make really stupid nav decisions, and they cost you a lot of time. Can you push it further than 48 hours? Yes, but mentally you start to lose it, and you start to make really stupid nav choices, like things that would be easy in normal life to decide become really hard.
Can we get Travis in on that? Have you pushed it that far too, 50 hours?
I don't know the exact numbers, but I do know when I first started adventure racing, I was 21 years old, and I was doing these big long 6-7 day races with older, more experienced athletes. And the first team I was on kind of had that sleep strategy of let's just go as hard as we can until we blow up and, not really bank any sleep. And that those first couple races of doing that were definitely not good. And I remember times like, reading the map, and instead of going downhill down a stream I was supposed to follow, I was leading the team back up the waterfall we had just rappelled down. And because of the sleep deprivation, it just didn't make sense to me that we were going the wrong way. So, you do things like that, or, you're riding along on a road and you're, all of a sudden your teammate's gone and man, where'd he go? And you go back half a mile and he's lying there on the side of the road. He crashed his bike because he fell asleep and he didn't wake up. And he's just lying there. And, thank goodness he was fine. Like, we're like, oh, is he dead? Oh, okay, he's just sleeping. And then it was, the finish line. In this case, this was the World Championship, and we're racing for top 5, and the finish line is like 5 miles away. But at that point, it was like, we have to sleep. We cannot make it. And so we did, and the team behind us was doing the same thing. So we held them off.
So we've got Avery, Jason's daughter, Avery, 2-year-old, with Jenny, Avery's mother. And next to them is Heather Kirchhoff, title sponsor tonight, HK Real Estate. Thanks so much for having us out.
Yeah, of course. I have a question. You guys are talking about nutrition, training, and I've married one of these people. What about mental? It's like, I think you guys are crazy. So how do you mentally challenge? Travis, you said you do mental challenges. How do you mentally get prepared for something like this? You can train. You have nutrition in place. Mentally, how do you get there?
I think that's a huge piece of it, and I think anyone who's interested in this kind of stuff, I think you should take that seriously, and that could be different things for different people. I mean, I think at the very base level, it's just when you're going through something challenging. And this could be in your day at work, or in your parenting, or even in your training, going outside when it's cold out or when it's raining. Instead of thinking about, oh, this is so hard, or I don't like this, or I'm not going to train today because it's cold outside, shift that story and tell yourself something like, this is good mental training. And it really is doing little things that are tough on a daily basis. And again, for me, this is something I think that anyone who's a parent can relate to, or anyone who's married or in a long-term relationship. Like, these things are wonderful, and they're really, really hard. And that's okay. And that's the same thing you're going to find in these races. So you got to plan ahead. If maybe you like reading, maybe you like learning about psychology, who knows? Maybe music is what gets you excited. You got to figure out what is going to drive you, and I think a big thing there is finding your why. Why are you doing this? What is motivating you? And figure that out and rehearse that in your head. You want to have those stories dialed in so that when things do get tough, at mile 80 of a 100-mile run, or in the middle of the night when you're trying to stay awake, or you're on this steep wall and you have to be dialed in so that you don't die. You want to have those things dialed in that you can rehearse in your mind. And those are going to be different things for different people, but try those out, and try those on in training, see what works for you.
Let's do a little round robin and include Kelly in this. Let's start with Travis. What is your why? When you say define your why, what does it sound like? What are some examples?
My why, I would say, it shifts from time to time. And as a younger athlete, I was definitely a lot more motivated about the podium, prize money, sponsorship, things like that. And I think I've shifted a lot more to impact is a big why for me. If I can make a difference for other people, and that for me spreads into the outdoor activities I do. And then also nature, like that spiritual experience is a big why for me on a daily basis of getting out the door. I feel better when I've gone outside and spent time in nature.
Kelly.
My big why also is a little bit spiritual, in the sense where whenever I'm outside and I push myself, I feel this lightness and a sense of freedom. So that's a big reason. It also makes me feel better in my body when I'm in really good shape. So I could probably work out all day long. I love it so much. It makes me feel so good. And it's nice to, like these guys, even though I don't have anywhere near the skills they do, if someone asks me to do something, to be in shape enough to be like, hell yeah, I'll do that. So yeah, that's my why.
Jason.
Man, when it comes to kind of non-race objectives, it usually is because I'm really excited about the objective. So that already is enough why for me. When it comes down to racing, often I look at this and say, like, not only am I voluntarily here, I paid usually hundreds of dollars to be here. So why not have a good time? And so I kind of use that to remind myself that I'm privileged, I'm able-bodied, and capable enough to do this. So enjoy the journey.
Erik.
Yeah, my why is pretty similar to, a lot of the ones that, that Jason said, and Travis and Kelly, and a lot of it comes down to is, when you get to that point in a race where you're suffering, really hard and you want to quit, I just think about, those are the moments that defined the race, and that's the moment that you look back to of, this is, the moment you push through, and it's going to come. And in an ultra distance event and things like that, you're going to get to that point, and you have to know what you're going to tell yourself to get through that. And for me, it's become that moment has just become part of the experience, and that's the point of when you decide of how bad you actually want what you're going for. And the why is it shifts, race to race, and I mean, suffering is part of life, and I think when you suffer in a race or in an outdoor adventure or anything, you come out of it and you're a better person, and you've learned something, and you're able to take that experience and bring that into your normal life, saying, oh, I've gone through this. Like, what I'm going through now in normal life isn't nearly as bad as what I went through out there and in this time. And I made it through it. Everything's okay. And I think that's important, to push yourself in these places. And in a race, it's a safer place than maybe an FKT effort or an unsupported effort.
And Wade Morris, we should mention, by the way, guys, he's a real life firefighter, y'all. He passed his exam. He's legit. He's with West Metro. Thank you for keeping us safe. And he's also, you mentioned, Heather, just this crazy culture of running, and climbers are crazy. You have this weird obsession with a very particular route in Eldo. Which one is it?
The Naked Edge.
The Naked Edge, and how many times have you climbed it, Wade?
69 times.
He's climbed the Naked Edge 69 times, guys. This sounds a little interesting, doesn't it? And he's lingering on 69 right now, seems like.
It got cold.
It got cold, he says. So why? Why do you go out and climb the same climbing route 69 times?
I think there's something to be said about the mastery that you can achieve by doing something repetitively. You can take that into climbing or running. You build your base training and the miles fly by. You don't even realize you just ran 10 miles. It's kind of the same way with the Naked Edge. Also, it's some friendly competition. Some guys decided to try to climb it fast, so we're trying to shoot after them. We'll get there. We got a little bit of time to knock off for the FKT, but.
So you're going after an FKT. So did you have it ever?
No.
Okay, so you've never had, but you want that FKT.
It would be nice.
Fastest known time for people listening, and so it's a competitive thing. But also, how many people have you been up there with?
I've climbed it with 20 different people.
So is it also part of just community for you?
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of go back to like why I do this. I feel like it's the community that I build, the experiences I have with people in these beautiful places. You can take two complete strangers, put them in a tent in bad weather for 24 hours, they're going to be best friends. Someone's going to be Big Spoon, someone's going to be Little Spoon probably because it's cold. Like bivvy on a ledge during the night. If you get benighted climbing in the Alpine, sometimes you don't go anywhere because it's too dark and too dangerous to move. So you get to sit on a 2x2 ledge with your partner, taking turns cuddling.
You said you're gonna become best friend. There is another alternative, right, guys?
There is. I think for most of these guys up here, I haven't had a really long experience with Erik, but I've been in a tent with Jason for 3 weeks.
Doing?
We're up in Alaska.
Doing Denali.
Yep. Also, like, my very first century on a bike was with Jason. Another reason I do these things, I think, is for FOMO, the fear of missing out. I hear about something that my friends are doing, and I'm like, oh, well, that sounds fun. Originally, me and our friend Mike, we had planned this big bike trip to climb a volcano in Mexico because Mike was originally going to be going to Alaska with us, and I hadn't done a big trip with Mike, so we wanted to do something to kind of bond. Jason got wind of our trip and was like, hey, why am I not going on this? so within a couple days, he had the tickets booked as well, and we all went to Mexico and had a fun little weekend adventure.
Kelly, add FOMO to the list of why. Is that partly you a little bit too, or not?
Yeah, that's
a
definitely
little. You're like,
part
oh,
of
your
mine.
friends are doing something cool. I want to do that.
No,
and if you're not in shape to
invited?
do it, you're not going on the trip.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. All right. I think, guys, thank you so much. We've had a great time with you guys. Our host, Colorado Mountain Club, we're going to do a little raffle here in a second for some Arc'teryx here. I want to end the night with a good friend of the show, Peter Downing with Suffer Better. Peter, thanks for coming out. Great to see you. Isn't he looking good, by the way, guys? Peter is looking. How old are you?
I'm old. I'm 64.
Can you guys believe that this guy's 64? I mean, he looks, I wouldn't say a year past 29. Will you tell us a little bit about Sufferfest and the event you have coming up in March, and then a question for our panelists?
Oh, I have so many questions for these fellows, but and Travis too. I've known Travis since he was a little guy because I used to run with his dad all the time. He's old too, by the way. And first thing, our event coming up in March, all of you who are runners can put your running to good use. We do an event called Running Up for Air, which is an event that raises money for air quality improvement. We do it, people come out. Jason was there last year. In fact, I think you won the 6-hour version, am I correct? Right?
Yeah, it's only because Courtney DeWalter and Joe Grant were in the 12-hour.
Yes. So you run up and down a mountain for 3, 6, or 12 hours, raising money for air quality improvement. That's March 9th. We have a great group of partners. That's fun. Another quick announcement is for all of you, on February 1st, Suffer Better is hosting the Boulder premiere of the documentary that Billy Yang did on Dave Mackey called Lead Man, the Dave Mackey story, which is at the Dairy Center in Boulder. Sufferfest Beer is going to sponsor that. Kelly Newland with Real Athlete Diets is making food, so buy a ticket, get a beer, eat some food, and we'll also have a Q&A with Billy and Matt Trapp, who did the movie. So my quick question for you guys is, what's next? Like the Beat Monday thing that I've watched you guys done, it is so, I think it's such a brilliant idea. So what's next there? What's the next big Beat Monday adventure? Whether or not Merrill's in the picture or not, what do you guys want to go do?
So the problem, Peter, is that it's hard to explain Beat Monday to us Colorado folks because I think everybody in Colorado is beating Monday on a regular basis. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Beat Monday, it's just kind of squeezing the most out of that 64-hour window we call the weekend. And, so the people I choose to surround myself are, people in this audience and people up here on the stage. But I think, what's next as far as weekend adventures, I have a spreadsheet that's 130 deep that have yet to be tackled yet. A lot of them are human-powered multi-sport adventures that Wade, Erik, and myself are certainly currently scheming on. But yeah, stay tuned. There's a lot out there, but nothing's going to be revealed specifically.
Kelly, don't you want to take a look at that spreadsheet? They are. These guys are very. You got to break some news for us before we wrap the show, guys. Come on, give us something. Give us something juicy. One of you three. Give us something on the agenda that we can look forward to.
I'll give you one, Russ.
Right.
So first and foremost, this is twofold. One is, I think what makes the people that I like look up to and I think are great role models in like the endurance adventure world. They seem to like get things done, and part of getting things done is not like talking a whole lot about other things. So I think that just helps.
Part of the ethos.
Part of it. Just kind of.
Let's set that aside for a second.
Yeah, and I've learned my lessons through talking a lot and not potentially following through.
You have to follow through. That's true. If you say you're going to do something on a podcast, you do need to follow through. So with that caveat.
Yeah, with that caveat, I think Eric and myself were talking about going back to the Cascades potentially this summer. The Cascade trifecta is Mount Hood, Rainier, and Adams in a day, or Buzz Burrell and Peter Backwin hold the FKT, which is 28 hours. But I think we could rally a few folks to do a little faster than that. So.
All right, going after a Buzz Burrell record. All right, that sounds pretty cool, guys. Well, thank you all so much for showing up. Another great Front Range Live. We are going to be having plenty of tabs on you guys in 2019. For folks that want to get more Travis Macy, stay tuned for details soon on workshops, mindfulness and meditation workshop, guys. Speaking to Heather's question, getting our mental game going, we agree. That's the foundation. So we're going to be doing workshops at the Studio Boulder, Chautauqua, maybe partnering with this guy over here at Suffer Better, maybe get out to Evergreen. I hear he's got a very nice property for this running up for air, so we're excited to do that. And I'm thinking either 6 or 12. I'm going to commit to 6 hours for the running. I will commit today to the 6 hour, and we'll see if we can get me to 12. We'll see if we can get me to 12. Thank you guys so much for showing up. And we'll do a raffle. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year. If you like the episode and others we've been doing, let us know with a review on Apple Podcasts. Better yet, share this episode with a friend. We've got lots coming at you in January. Make sure to check out the website, dispatchradio.com. Sign up for the newsletter for weekly updates on new episodes. Mark your calendars for January 16th, a double header. We have a morning show at the Go Far Shop with the Boulder Hiker Chicks and Darcy Picayune. And that evening on January 16th, we'll be at the Boulder Running Company, out running and recording with David and Megan Roach, authors of the new book, Happy Runner.